whatever you're doing and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and I'm back with another dose of fine German engineering. This time we're looking at the E50M, the top-tier German medium tank in what I would like to term the fat medium line. You've got the Leopard, which runs through a whole bunch of lights and a few other lighter medium tanks. And then you have the E50M, which is basically the big German tank that ate all the pies. Now, this is a Patreon-sponsored post. I'd just like to take a quick moment to thank all the boys and girls of Patreon sponsorship fame. You guys really help move the channel along. And without you, quite honestly, I wouldn't be doing this still, because the guys that do sponsor the channel, for all that it does sound like a bit, I mean, it's not terribly altruistic on my part, but I've got the family, the kids, the wife, everything like that. And if I don't make some kind of financial contribution from the channel, there's no way I can justify it to the missus putting the amount of time in that it takes. So hats off to you, team. And if you have thought about sponsoring the channel from as little as $1 a month, pop along to Patreon. The link is there. Do your best. Now, this tank, particular reason I'm showing you this clip, we're going to go through a few things about this tank, the good, the bad, and how you can mitigate and maximize those in equal measure to really be successful. But one of the bad things about this tank is it's got very low DPM for a Tier X medium. Well, it's not low DPM, it's excellent DPM for any tank. But at Tier X, when you're fighting Object 140s and T62As, and even the FE4202 and other tanks like that, they've all got better damage per minute than you have. And you'll know how I'm moving side to side here and shooting and trying to get them to miss shots. That's a particularly important skill in a tank like this, because damage per minute is exactly where it said, DPM. And while you're unlikely to bounce shots completely, what you do with tanks like that ISA is you make them take longer to get their shot out, which means that you actually get an advantage and almost increase your damage per minute, because you're lowering their damage per minute. When they've got a shot in their barrel and they're not firing, then that means that their damage per minute is going down. And if you've got a really good penetration value tank like the E50M, you don't have to worry too much about that. You're pretty much going to pen everything that you can hit. Then your damage per minute stays the same, and the difference between those two numbers, well, as far as you're concerned, the bigger it is, the better it is for you. And you're going to see that that's a really key stat for this tank, because this tank can mitigate incoming damage a lot more effectively than most mediums in its tier, in its class. And there's certainly differences in the mediums. And look, let's get this out of the way. The most negative part about this tank is that it's not really a true medium, in the sense that it's very mobile and it's able to turn, fight, and those kind of things. It doesn't do that, and it's not really its game. It's also got not great camouflage skills, and it's not the best tank in terms of spotting. What it has going for it is a tremendously thick upper glacis and an outstanding gun with .30 dispersion and some very, very good gun handling attributes. Now, a few other tricks of the trade here that you want to min-max. You want to make sure that as often as possible you've got that upper glacis slightly angled, and that is the part of the tank that the enemy can see. Because you'll see all through this video, there are plenty of opportunities for me to get penned, and they struggle to pen. The other thing I want to talk about too is with tanks like this that are so reliant on angles and bounces for its armor, you want to actually see how there's a tree in front of me there, and you'll see a couple of times in this video where I do this. And look at this gun perform straight through the cheeks of a mouse, the most heavily armored tank in the game for all intents and purposes. And this is one of the reasons why poor old Heavy's cop an absolute flogging from mediums. He's getting out DPM'd as he comes up this hill. He's got to keep climbing. He's turning his armor profile to all and sundry, and we're penning him straight through the cheeks of his turret. But I digress. You'll see me get behind trees and things like this, even when tanks aren't that far away. And there's a reason for it, because it hides the hit skins, or the color of the hit skins, to a large degree. And that means that when you're moving your chassis around and changing the angle and the effective armor of your upper and lower plate, they can't easily see whether it's a clear shot or it's a red shot. And that's especially true when you're side scraping in tanks, particularly if you can do that behind a tree. Even though it doesn't offer any real camouflage in terms of spotting, it offers real camouflage in terms of your hit skins. Now, the E50M has some fantastic, you can see the heat coming, has some fantastic things going for it, not the least of which, obviously, is its ability to bounce same tier medium tanks on that upper plate. But it's not always super effective. You can see exactly what I was talking about before. I'm going to do it right here. After I'm pushed forward to that IS-7 and I pull back, I don't actually ram him because I don't have the hit points for it. I was actually just trying to get him to stop. And there we go. We catch it as we're moving around on that lower plate. And he ends up getting a track. And do you think I was ever happy when the ST1 turned up for the first time that game that I could see him and I realised he was stock? Oh, good Lord, yes. We've done some excellent bouncing here and just kept withdrawing and giving him that upper plate, and eventually we get the win. You can ram in this tank. You can snipe in this tank very, very effectively. You can side scrape a touch in this tank. Things you can't really do, you can't turn fight because the side of your tank is massive and you will get hit. You're not very agile. Now you're going to see that I decided to do something I've not really ever done before and will never do again. I try and go along this edge here and I'm about as dainty as a lumberjack in a ballet contest. We get there in the end and this is a very interesting game. I had some fun games both on my own and with Pimp Daddy trying to get the video for this tank. Good God, look at this. I'm perched on top of a cliff, trying not to fall in a canal. I mean, oh, it lumbers. But she's a beautiful gun, and if you can run it downhill at something, you can hit them for 800 damage. We make an informed decision on this map. I know I should be talking more about the tank, but I just want to talk through this little process. There's nothing really spotted ahead and to my right. And I know that if I can get around here, hot diggity dog, Bob will be my mother's brother's name, and I think all my Christmases have come at once. But you cannot legislate for humanity. And who would believe that a T-54 would be sitting in respawn there, just waiting for the opportunity to shoot someone? And that an M48A1 would pop over my right shoulder in just a second. I mean, you can believe it because you should never place your faith in anything but Murphy's Law. The worst that can happen will happen. But you're going to see this puts me in an interesting situation because this is really bad gameplay. I chance my arm to try and win it all really quickly, and I immediately put myself in an exceptionally negative position. But the upper plate on this tank is very, very strong. And it's very, very hard to pen effectively, especially with anything outside of premium ammunition. And this T-54 does in fact fire a little bit of heat at me. Can't blame me for that. You can see, because I'm angled, and this is a really key stat for most tanks that not enough people think about, but it's especially effective with a tank like the E50M, where you can angle that upper plate and present it and be very, very confident you are going to get some decent bounces out of it. If you go back far enough into the water like this and it becomes angled, then it becomes really high in terms of effective armor and very, very difficult to pen and very hard to get at that lower glacis. So while you're not a turn fighter, you either want to be medium to long range or absolutely nose to nose. And you'll see in some of the video as we go forward, we do actually get right up close and personal. And the reason because of that, and you saw me do it with the IS-7 and the ST1, is because it then fills their screen with this massive red plate that is your upper glacis and the very small to hit target of your turret area. and why it's certainly no guarantee. It's all about min-maxing and minimising the places they can hit that are really easy to pen and maximising their view of the places that they can't pen. Now you can see here I've moved forward and proximity spotted that M48A1 and Pimp Daddy has hammered him. So you're seeing here the tank has very good survivability. It's able to bounce some shots. Now, not all the shots, and certainly not every shot and from every tank. Some tanks are just going to pen you because they've got a lot of penetration value, like a T110E4 or an E3 with 295 millimeters of penetration on their bloody APCR rounds, and 375 millimeters of penetration on their APCR, and 295 on their AP. And you see here, I'm on that slope again. Look at the incline. It just absolutely wrecks this poor bugger's day, and he did really well, didn't he? He absolutely was a thorn in my side, kept me over here, and we're down to 2 minutes to go. Still 4 tanks to kill, and nothing is written in stone here, but you'll see the gun start to perform. Just snapshotting straight through a Yag Tiger there. I think it's 258 millimeters of pen on the APCR rounds. 268. I'm not going to go and look it up. It's around 260 millimeters of pen. Certainly plenty to get through just about anyone in the game if you aim nicely, and your heat kicks you well up over the early 300s. I could look, but you're all going to have to look. It's like 330 millimeters of penetration on your heat, something around that. And once you get in a situation like this at range, and you always move back behind a bush just in case, it's just you get used to doing things like that. You can really start pumping out damage. It's very, very effective at long range as he misses a shot in the back of a T110E3. And Pimp Daddy's now... Pimp had a whale of a game here. We had a 2-man run going there where we basically just saved each other's ass completely. I got here just in time to head these TDs off at the pass, and he nutted that M48A1 who was about to come down and do me no end of grief. And I enjoyed making I had not driven this tank for a long while, and I've got to say it was well worth getting back to doing another review of this tank. So what have we talked about? Talked about the upper glacis. We haven't talked enough about the weapon. It's 0.30 dispersion. It's the gold standard. This and the Leo's gun at X are absolutely outstanding. In terms of hitting what you aim for, if you get this thing at range, it's just about the best sniper tank that money can buy. It's got outstanding dispersion. It will hit absolutely everything you point at. The only negative about this tank at all, really, in terms of the gun, is the damage per minute. It's at the bottom of the Tier X medium stakes, behind the FV, behind the FV4202, behind the STB1 even, behind the M48A1. Pretty sure it's down the bottom there, even more so than the Object 140 and the T62A, who are up around 3,000 DPM. Your E50M is right around the 2,600 mark, which is still bigger than your T54 and your M46 of this world, but for a Tier X medium, it's not overwhelming. Oh, this game. Pimp and I had a bit of a rough run. We did win a few, but the ones that we lost, I mean, the last game you would have seen, we did about 4.5 for me and 4-3 for me and 3-8 for Pimp. This one was nearly just after or just before that one. And, you know, whether through apathy or ignorance, the rest of our team doesn't really pull their weight in this one either. Such mystery. Yeah, so more about the E50M. Now, you're going to note in this one, things to note, is there's a brawl with an IS-3. One of the best things, as I said, about this tank is its ability to mitigate incoming damage. And I talk sometimes, and some of you haven't probably heard me talk about it, so I will talk about it here, is the Yolo Factor and how you can bleed hit points to targets that it's not necessary to bleed hit points to. And what I mean by that is if you're in a Leopard 1 in this situation and this ST1 comes around the corner, now he hit me there anyway, but say it's a T44 comes around the corner. In a Leopard 1, that T-44 is going to pen you regardless. And if he's silly enough to want to exchange a shot for shot, whether you like it or not, you're going to bleed those hit points. In the E50M, that's not the case. You have a better than even chance against tanks like a T-44 or in this case an IS-3, which you'll see in this game, of actually bouncing the shot and not losing those hit points and saving those hit points to do more damage further down the track. And that's something that certain tanks like a T-62A, for example, has an outstanding turret, but its chassis is exceptionally weak. And that means that when a YOLOing, well, let's take a YOLOing, I don't know, Tiger 2 or a YOLOing M103 come around the corner, they're going to pen him through the chassis if they absolutely want to. And there's not a whole lot he can do about it. And it doesn't mean that they're a better player than him. It's just if someone runs at you with a gun and they're not afraid of dying, they're every chance of getting a shot off regardless of how many blokes you've got around you. And that's exactly the case here with these tanks. If they come around the corner, you're going to bleed hit points. And it's one of the reasons why I prefer the Object 140 over the 62A, because it legislates for that user error, which is mine in putting myself in bad positions. It bounces more than a T-62A does, and the E50M does exactly that. It legislates for the user error and actually bounces shots whether I like it or not. It's not just always about my angling. Sometimes it's just got more armor than a Tier 8 heavy, and because of that, it's going to save you hit points. There you go. Hope you got that one. Now, you can see everyone's dead. It's me and Pimp. In a huge surprise to everyone, we're the last ones left. And this gun is still putting in the work. I mean, it just keeps hitting. It's a lovely, lovely gun. It works best at range, but as you guys know, there's... it is what it is. The game's changed. The long-range sniper sitting on a hill is a thing of the past. And that's probably a good thing, because dynamic gameplay is a lot more important and it makes the game a lot more interesting for more people, despite the fact that a lot of people do like sniping. And this tank is very good at it. And there are situations where you can put yourself in to actually do that. Now, you're going to see what I'm talking about here with this IS-3. He comes around the corner. And there's a Tiger 2 there. And we're still taking hits there. We bounce another one from the Tiger 2. We try and use him to keep us between him and the IS-3. And the IS-3 loses interest with that. And we pump him. And now we're into the IS-3. Now, there's no happy endings in this one, boys and girls. We obviously have no hit points left, but we've got a full hit point IS-3. And you can see, here we go. We are absolutely shoving that nose in. Look at the angle of his nose, of his gun, to my upper glacis. That's all I'm worried about. The angle of his gun to my upper glacis. I'm not looking at the rest of his tank. I'm looking at his gun and trying to always keep my upper glacis angled to that. And we actually do bounce quite a few shots there before he gets us. And because of that, we are able, fortunately, to put him right down to 100 and something hit points from a full hit point tree, because you don't bleed shots. And I cut the rest out because Pimp and I had a bit of a whinge and a bit of a rage at some of the people in my team who, through probably no fault of their own, got caught in poor positions or just a little bit ignorant of the gameplay and the style required to get the win. So look, I hope that was helpful for you humans. I hope you got something out of the E50M Advanced Tactics Guide and a little bit of talk about life, love, and the art of war. There's lots coming up. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who's given us a couple of benchmarks this week. 1 million views on channel, which freaks me out. That is, I mean, for a lot of people that's not much, but for me that's... I'm a 43-year-old dude who just started playing a game that had never been on YouTube in his life. And to have 1 million hits on channel is freaking fantastic. And we're going to soon have the 10,000 subs mark coming up, which again is freaking fantastic. And I'm going to do a 10,000 subs stream and pump some videos out for that, where I'm going to basically stream and sub and platoon with subscribers and nothing else but subscribers, one game each, and every post is a winner. So look, I'm Bushka on Blitz. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, check out that Patreon site. Think about sponsoring the idiot that gets behind the microphone, and stay safe out there on the battlefield.